Content warning. This story contains explicit sexual content, mature themes about marital intimacy, and is intended strictly for adult audiences. The silk sheets beneath Adaeze were already damp with sweat, and he hadn't even touched her yet. Sol's winter pressed cold against the bedroom windows, but inside, the air was thick, heavy with jasmine incense, expensive wine on their breath, and the kind of tension that made her thighs clench involuntarily. Her husband stood at the foot of the bed, unbuttoning his shirt with deliberate slowness. Tattoos emerged from beneath the white fabric, dragons coiling up his chest, Korean characters marking his ribs, black ink covering the body of a man who looked like he could break her in half. Park Jae-won, 6'3" of controlled violence, wrapped in designer suits and old money, 34 years old. Her husband of exactly 4 hours. And Adaeze Okafor, 27, virgin, Nigerian, terrified, had no idea what she'd gotten herself into. When he finally dropped the shirt to the floor and she saw all of him, her mouth went dry. Chineke, she whispered in Igbo. My God, because there was no way, absolutely no possible way, that was going to fit inside her body. The Peninsula Seoul penthouse suite cost more per night than Adaeze's father made in 3 months. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Han River, the city lights reflecting off black water like scattered diamonds. The bed was massive, Western style, nothing like the modest twin she'd slept in at her parents' house in Enugu. Everything here was foreign, cold, expensive, including her husband. Jae-won approached the bed with the confidence of a man who'd never been denied anything. His body was all lean muscle and sharp edges, stomach cut into definition that made her fingers ache to trace the lines. But it was what hung heavy between his legs that made her breath catch. 7 inches, maybe more. Thick, already hardening as he looked at her. She was still in her wedding hanbok, the traditional Korean dress his mother had insisted on. Red and gold silk that made her dark skin look like polished mahogany. Her afro-textured hair had been straightened and pinned into an elegant updo that took 3 hours and hurt her scalp. She felt like a doll, dressed up, displayed, offered. Adaeze. His voice was deep, accented, the way he said her name always careful, deliberate. Look at me. She forced her eyes up from where they'd been fixed on his groin, her face burning. Jae-won knelt on the bed, crawling toward her with predatory grace. Are you afraid of me? Yes. No. Liar. But he smiled just slightly. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb stroking her cheekbone. We don't have to do this tonight. We're married, she said, voice barely above a whisper. It's expected? Expected. He repeated the word like it tasted bitter. Is that what you want? To meet expectations? What she wanted was to disappear. To wake up back in Nigeria where sex was something married people did behind closed doors and never ever discussed. Where her mother's only advice had been endure the first time. It gets easier. Endure. But when Jae-won's other hand slid to the tie of her hanbok, when his fingers worked the knot with practiced ease, her body betrayed her with a flush of heat that spread from her chest down to the place between her legs that had never been touched by anyone. The silk fell open. Beneath it, she wore nothing. His mother's tradition. The bride must be pure and ready. Jae-won's breath hitched. Her breasts were small, high, nipples already hard from the air conditioning and something else she didn't want to name. Her stomach was soft, curving gently. Between her thighs, neatly trimmed dark curls hid the virgin territory that was supposed to belong to him now. Beautiful, he murmured, and she heard the hunger in his voice. Raw, barely restrained. When he lowered his head to take her nipple in his mouth, she gasped. The sensation shot straight down to her core, making her wet in a way that shocked and shamed her. Good girls don't get wet, a voice in her head whispered. Good girls endure. But her body didn't care about good. It only knew the hot drag of his tongue, the gentle scrape of teeth, the way his hand palmed her other breast with a possessiveness that made her arch into him. Then his hand moved lower, sliding down her stomach, over her hip, between her thighs. She clamped her legs shut instinctively. Adaeze. His voice was strained now. tight with control that was clearly costing him. Open for me. I can't. You can. You don't understand. Her voice broke. You're, you're too big. The words hung between them like a confession. Jaewon pulled back, kneeling between her legs, his erection standing proud and intimidating. He looked down at her closed thighs, her panicked expression, her hands clutching the sheets like a lifeline. I'll be gentle, he said. That's what everyone says. I'm not everyone. But when he tried to spread her legs, when his fingers pressed insistently at her inner thighs, her whole body went rigid with terror. Wait. He didn't wait. Not exactly. But he slowed, his touch softening, his other hand stroking her stomach in what was probably meant to be soothing. It wasn't. Because she could feel him. Hard, hot, the tip of him brushing against her thigh, leaving a smear of wetness that made her realize just how much he wanted this, how much he'd been holding back. And she wasn't ready, wasn't prepared, wasn't anything except terrified. When he finally positioned himself at her entrance, when she felt the blunt pressure of him pushing against the place that had never been breached, she panicked. You're too hard! The words burst out of her, desperate and ashamed. I can't, it's too much. She shoved at his chest with both hands. Jaewon froze. Then, slowly, he pulled back. His jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscle jumping. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then he stood, turning away from the bed, his shoulders tense, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. His erection hadn't softened. If anything, it looked harder, almost angry, curving up toward his stomach in a way that made her throat tight. I'm sorry, she whispered. Hey, don't. His voice was harsh. Don't apologize for this. But I said don't. He grabbed his pants from the floor, pulled them on without looking at her, and walked out of the bedroom. Adaeze sat there in the empty room, her wedding handbag open, her body still tingling with unwanted arousal, and began to cry. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks of sleeping in the same bed with a wall of space between them. 3 weeks of Jaewon leaving for work before she woke up and coming home after she'd already gone to bed. 3 weeks of their marriage existing only on paper. Adaeze tried to adjust to life in Seoul, the cold, the language she only half understood, the way his family looked at her, his mother with barely concealed disappointment, his father with polite distance, his younger sister with outright hostility. The Nigerian woman who trapped our Jaewon, she'd overheard them say in Korean, not realizing she understood more than she let on. The penthouse felt like a prison made of marble and glass. And at night, lying beside a man who wouldn't touch her, who barely looked at her, Adaeze felt her body do something she didn't expect. It ached. But here, in the cold Seoul bathroom, with her husband on the other side of the door, she let her fingers slide through wetness that shocked her. Let them circle the small bundle of nerves that made her gasp. Let herself feel, just for a moment, what desire actually was. When she came, quiet, shaking, biting her lip to keep from making sound, the shame hit immediately after. What kind of wife are you? The kind who was married to a man she couldn't let touch her, but couldn't stop thinking about. The 4th week, Jaewon stopped being patient. He came home from work earlier than usual, poured himself a drink, and found her in the living room pretending to read. We need to talk. Adaeze looked up. He was still in his suit. Tie loosened, the first 3 buttons of his shirt undone. She could see the edge of his tattoos, the hollow of his throat where his pulse beat visibly. About what? You know what. She set the book down. J1. 4 weeks, Adaeze. We've been married for 4 weeks, and I haven't touched you once. Haven't kissed you. Haven't. He stopped, jaw clenching. Is this how our marriage is going to be? I need time. Time for what? To decide if you can stand the thought of me inside you? The words were cruel, but his voice cracked on them. Adaeze stood, her own frustration finally boiling over. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. I can't. She was shouting now, tears hot in her eyes. I can't explain how every time I try to let you touch me, I feel like I'm going to split in half. I can't explain how I was raised to believe sex is something you endure, not enjoy, and now I'm supposed to just open my legs for a man who's what? He stepped closer, towering over her. Say it. Too big, she whispered. You're too big and I'm scared, and I don't know how to want what terrifies me. The confession broke something between them. J1 set his drink down carefully, like he didn't trust his hands. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter, rougher. You think I don't know I scare you? You think I don't see the way you flinch when I get too close? The way you hold your breath when I'm in the same room? He ran a hand through his hair, and for the first time, she saw how exhausted he looked. I was told my whole life that being a man means taking what's yours. That gentleness is weakness. That my size, my strength. He gestured at himself, at the body that looked carved from stone, is something to be proud of. His laugh was bitter. But what good is any of it if my own wife is terrified of me? Adaeze stared at him, at this man who'd never raised his voice to her, never forced her, never demanded what she couldn't give. I'm not terrified of you, she said softly. I'm terrified of how much I want you. The admission hung in the air between them. Jaywin's eyes darkened. What did you say? I want you. Her voice was stronger now. I lie in bed every night wanting you so badly it hurts. But I don't know how to reconcile wanting with fear. I don't know how to let you in without feeling like I'll lose myself. He crossed the distance between them in 2 strides, his hands framing her face with a gentleness that contradicted his size. Then let me teach you, he said. Let me show you that you won't lose yourself, that you'll find yourself. How? By going slow, by learning your body together, by making pleasure the goal, not just fucking. The crude word should have shocked her. Instead, it sent a pulse of heat straight to her core. Okay, she whispered. Okay? Teach me. They started that night. Not with sex, but with touch. J1 led her to the bedroom, but instead of the bed, he sat in the leather armchair in the corner and pulled her into his lap, her back against his chest. Just this, he murmured against her ear, just feeling me hold you. His arms wrapped around her waist. She was wearing one of his t-shirts, nothing underneath. She could feel every inch of him against her. The hard planes of his chest, the strength in his thighs, and yes, the unmistakable presence of his erection pressing against her lower back. You feel that? He asked. She nodded. That's what you do to me. Just by being near. Just by existing. His hands splayed across her stomach, but I'm not going to do anything about it. Not until you ask. They sat like that for 20 minutes, then 30. Adaeze's breathing slowed. Her body relaxed into his. When his hands finally moved, just a slow drag up her ribs, she didn't flinch. Good, he whispered. So good, Adaeze. The next night he undressed her. Slowly. One piece of clothing at a time, letting her get used to being naked in front of him, while he remained fully clothed. Touch yourself, he said. Her eyes went wide. What? Show me how you touch yourself when I'm not here. I don't. You do. I've heard you in the bathroom. The shame burned through her, but so did something else. Arousal. With shaking hands, she let her fingers trail down her stomach, between her legs, finding the wetness that was already there. J1 watched like a man starving. Does it feel good? Yes. Tell me what you think about. You. The admission was a whisper. I think about you. What do I do to you in your thoughts? Her fingers circled her clit, pleasure building. You push inside me. Slowly, so slowly. And it hurts, but she gasped. It also feels, say it, good. It feels good. When she came on her own fingers, Jaewon's hands clenched on the arms of the chair, his cock straining visibly against his pants. But he didn't touch her. Not yet. 2 weeks later, Adaeze was ready. Or as ready as she'd ever be. They'd spent every night building up to this. His fingers inside her, stretching her, teaching her body to accept intrusion. His mouth on her, showing her that pleasure could eclipse fear. His patience, endless and unwavering. Now, lying on their bed with candles casting golden light across her dark skin, with Jaewon naked above her, she finally said the words, "I'm ready." He kissed her deeply, thoroughly, until she was gasping and wet and aching. Then he positioned himself at her entrance. 7 inches of hard, intimidating reality. Breathe, he reminded her. She did. He pushed in, slowly, so slowly, and her body resisted, clenching tight despite the weeks of preparation. Relax, he murmured, one hand on her hip, the other between them, fingers finding her clit. Let me in, Adaeze. The pressure increased, the stretch began. She whimpered as he breached her, as the thick head of him finally pushed past the resistance and entered her body. Fuck, Jaewon groaned, his forehead dropping to hers, sweat beading on his skin. You're so tight. It hurt. God, it hurt. But underneath the pain was something else. Fullness, completion, the sense of finally being claimed. He pushed deeper, inch by inch, giving her body time to adjust, to stretch around him. When he was finally seated fully inside her, when all 7 inches filled her completely, they both stopped moving. Look at me, he said. She opened her eyes, met his gaze. You took all of me, he said, wonder in his voice. Every inch. Pride bloomed in her chest alongside the pain. Then he began to move. Slow, careful thrusts that made her gasp. The drag of him inside her, hitting places she didn't know existed. The way his body covered hers, protecting even as he took. It hurt. But it also felt good, she gasped. It feels good. Jaewon's control snapped slightly, his thrusts becoming harder, deeper. Say that again. It feels good, oh God. Touch yourself, he commanded. Make yourself come while I'm inside you. Her hand flew between them, finding her clit, circling frantically as he drove into her with increasing urgency. When she came, her body clenching around him, Jaewon groaned deep and followed her over the edge, spilling inside her with shuddering force. Dawn light filtered through the windows. Adaeze lay curled against Jaewon's chest, both of them naked, sticky, satisfied. You were never too hard, she said softly. I was just never taught how to want. His arms tightened around her, and I was never taught that real strength is patience. They lay there in silence, two bodies finally learning to speak the same language, the language of desire, of trust, of pleasure earned through vulnerability. Outside, Seoul woke up to another winter day. Inside, a marriage finally began. Watch out for part 2 as they navigate the issues. Facing their marriage, you would not believe what happens next. Stay tuned.